Welcome to the episode 5 of my devlog series on making an indie factory game. In this episode, I'm going to build a feature that will bring together the elements developed in episode 2, 3 and 4. That is, the block placement mechanic, to allow the user to place blocks from their inventory and pick them back up. One of the challenges of this set of features is binding the inputs and interactions in an obvious way to ensure a smooth user experience. I want the user to be able to harvest stuff from the world, open inventories and containers, and pick back up machines and other blocks that they placed. Right-click I reserve for orbiting the camera around, so I think it makes sense to bind opening machines and containers to left-click. For harvesting things, I think it's also nice to have it on left-click, as it's those blocks' main interaction. But now I need to find a way for the user to pick up blocks that are not harvestable, such as this wooden crate. I decided to create a special hotbar slot that will be the edit mode button, where the user can remove certain blocks that I mark as removable. This will be the case of most machines and automation elements, while harvestable blocks such as mineral deposits and trees will not be removable in this mode. For the color scheme, interactions will be white, placement will be blue, and edit mode will be orange. I had a lot of fun making the highlights, and I'll explain later in this episode how I made them, but first, let's talk about the UI design. From the comments on the previous video, it was clear that I needed to find a more visible way to display the stack count, so I added a background badge. I tried a few colors, and my favorite is this dark grey. I think it's an improvement over the white text with just a drop shadow. For the hotbar, I started my concepts from here, adding a row to the inventory for placing items in the hotbar slots. To avoid the hotbar itself looking like inventory slots where the user can drag and drop items from, I needed to find a design that's different enough from the inventory. I felt like this top one was the most consistent with my design. It may still be too similar, but I'll refine that after some playtesting. For the special edit tool slot, I initially separated it, similar to how the inventory looked. But I didn't like that. I combined it and made it orange. But to separate it a bit more, I put a divider line. And this gave me the idea to do the same for the inventory, so I added a divider between the hotbar slots and the main inventory slots. I like that it's consistent, but I'm not fully happy with the inventory window. I will go back to all of this later. The highlights were really exciting for me to do. I love doing VFX and shaders, and this one was a fantastic challenge, and I'm quite happy with the result. I made a custom renderer feature for all my highlights. Via a custom render pass, I render my highlighted objects onto two different target textures. The first one with a simple plain color material. This is the map I will use for my outlines. The second time, I render all my highlighted objects with their material for the fill of the highlight. I then blit that last texture over my camera target, and finally I blit my outline texture with a special edge detection filter. I check nearby pixels, in this pattern, for either a change in alpha, signifying the edge of an outline, or a change in color, signifying two outlines are next to each other. To highlight an object, I just need to slap my highlight behavior script on the root, and assign the materials for the outline and the body highlight. I made the highlight shader in shader graph, and it consists of scrolling horizontal lines in screen space, combined with a couple of random noise. A nice little touch I added is some saturation to the color of the object, which I think looks particularly good on the placement hologram. All of that, of course, in HDR for extra juicy glow. Okay, now let's talk about making certain items placeable. When the user selects a block item in the hotbar, I switch to the place block mode. For the preview, I create a copy of the block's visuals only, and tell the highlight manager to highlight that copy for block placement. The highlight manager handles adding, configuring, and removing the highlight behavior script I mentioned earlier, with the right settings for each highlight intent. Upon clicking to place down the block, the player sends an RPC to the server to place a block down from a given slot, and the server validates that request, then spawn a block and remove an item from that player's inventory. I do something very similar when selecting the tool from the hotbar. When clicking, request the server to remove the block at that position and place it in my inventory. And that's it. On top of working on the block placement, I also worked on a few things in parallel. You may have noticed that the grass looks a bit different. This is still not the final version, but I'm experimenting with different styles to later make my own texture. Something else exciting I'm working on is the energy system. If you are on the Discord, you may have seen this post I made about it already. I'm hoping the next episode will be about that, so stay tuned if you're curious. I think it's going to be super interesting. As always, if you'd like to give me feedback or ideas, you are very welcome to join the Discord server. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Hoping to see you again in the next one.